Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Johngy podcast, without which life would be incomplete and have little or no meaning. Coming to us, as always, from Skokie, Illinois, is the man on the beat, from JohnG'sBeat.com, Mr. Jonathan Francis Robleski.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
What?
That's my middle name. Now you've killed the whole bit going forward.
Oh boy, I got it.
Wow.
Wow, I got it. All right. Well, there it is. History has been made. We finally did it.
And the thing was, I thought you were going to come with a different middle name, which would lead us based on what we're going to discuss.
Well, it's
And
related to that. It's related
and that
to
name
that.
would have been my confirmation name.
Yeah. Okay.
Because us weirdo Catholics have like a million names.
I see.
And that would be Paul.
All right. Yeah. No, it is related, but I'll get to that later. Yeah, we're here.
Now we need a new shtick now. We carried that shtick for 60.
What do you mean we? You don't have a shtick. I
went along with it.
You went along with it. Oh well, there's a whole lot of work that goes into that. I mean, how many names?
Yes.
Unbelievable. No, we're here today for a special episode because as of this recording yesterday, we lost a major influential icon in entertainment and just as a human being. Paul Reubens, who most people know as Pee Wee Herman, passed away at 70 years old from cancer. He had been battling this for several years silently and not letting anyone in on it. And he passed away yesterday. Left a brief note to his fans and everyone that he was hoping they'd forgive him for not saying anything about it, but that was the way he wanted to go, and he was very grateful for everybody and loves everyone and stuff.
What a class act. Truly a class act.
And the reason I wanted us to talk about this because for me personally, this was a tough one. I mean, celebrity deaths, sometimes hit you a little harder than others. I think the last one that really knocked me to my knees was Eddie Guerrero when he had passed. But
well, I told you almost to the day was 8 years ago. The one that hit me the worst was Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
And it's like 1 day difference of 8 years. Paul Reubens for you. And I mean, I love Paul too, but obviously there's more of your guy.
Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to come on and talk a little about it. First of all, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you that when I found out, I just sat down and started crying. I mean, for me, it's like finding out Santa Claus died, I mean, when I was a kid, I watched Pee-wee's Playhouse every Saturday morning. I could care less about any of the other cartoons. I watched them, but I
watched them, and I wasn't even a kid.
I watched them, but it was all with the anticipation of 10:30 CBS, Pee-wee's Playhouse. And what was great was my uncle was also a big fan, and so we would both be watching the shows in our respective homes, and then on a commercial break, the phone would ring, and it would be him, and he'd be saying did you see that, and what about this, and so huge fan of it. And then of course Pee-wee's Big Adventure was a huge movie for so many people for so many reasons. But I remember in first, second grade, somewhere around there, I had a copy made of Pee-wee's Big Adventure on VHS, and I would get home from school at 3 o'clock and make 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then sit there, and I watched that movie every single day for the longest time. I mean, it just absolutely was. I was obsessed with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Um, my my grandmother from Boston never could wrap her head around. She hated Pee-wee. She hated Pee-wee. She and she just couldn't understand why I liked him. And she didn't do this on purpose. She legitimately messed up his name all the time and always called him PP Herman and thought that was his name. I'm like, well, you're not far off, but I mean,
Would
it's
you have did you have a Pee Wee Herman doll that you brought out when
yes, I
during the
still have.
Heather Owens interview, right?
Yeah, I still have my talking Pee-wee, and
Yeah.
my grandmother was actually the one who got it for me. While she did not care for him, she knew that I did, and I remember very distinctly the day I got that. It was a half day at school, and I came home, and there was this huge box that came from my grandmother. Once in a blue moon, she would just send you this gigantic box of just random stuff. It'd be clothes and candy and maybe a couple toys and whatever. I mean, very awesome. And I mean, we opened that box. I'm not expecting any of this at all. And inside, there it is, a talking Pee-wee Herman doll. And I mean, I don't think I cried, but I probably could have. You know, I was losing my mind. Now the problem is that not that year, but maybe the next year, I had it out like in the backyard. I must have left it there, and the entire winter came and went with him out there. And I found him, and he was physically fine, but the voice box was completely shot. So he spoke at like 100 times the speed, and Pee Wee already had a pretty high voice.
Yeah.
So instead of like, I know you are, but what am I? It was, I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I? You know, and it still does it to this day. But physically, he's in good condition. So I still have that. Um, and then I've got the entire Pee Wee's Playhouse series on Blu ray. And a few years ago, I went a long time. I went 20 years straight with having a Christmas party every year on Christmas night here at my place. The last few years got a little spotty with COVID and other things and stuff like that. But in the last several times that we did have the party on that night, I would always put on Pee Wee's Playhouse in the background just to have something on the television. But it was just one of those,
Perfect.
but it's one of those things that, like, if you only watch 30 seconds of it and then you turn and go back to the kitchen or whatever, you know, and talk to somebody or whatever, if you see 30 seconds of it, you will be entertained. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. That's why it's perfect.
that show is rapid fire, like a machine gun. Like, I never, as an adult, I watch it and I'm just like, I can't imagine organizing what it took to make this show. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like there's like 100 bits in one episode, and they're like 23-minute episodes. They're small. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a half-hour show, but man, there's claymation, there's animation, there's costumes, the whole playhouse itself. It's like, how long did it take him to put all the intricate things? If you look on the wall, like when he's standing next to something or whatever, all the little things there and stuff, it's like there's a random picture of like Richard Nixon or something
Yeah,
like
the
that, and it's
details are
like,
ridiculous.
right, and it's like, why, like, who decided that should go up there, they had the characters. You had the genie had Johnby in the box, and he got to make a wish every day. He had his talking fish. He had the ant colony. He had dinosaurs living in a mouse hole. His furniture all talked. There was Conky the robot. There was Terry the pterodactyl. You
Weren't there
know, hey
two
wee,
famous people
hey
that
wee, I
came?
want to be the
Oh,
baby.
jeez.
You know.
Weren't there two famous people that came from that show?
Well, there was more than a couple. So the most notable ones are probably both Lawrence Fishburne, who played Cowboy Curtis, and then there was Phil Hartman, who was Captain, or he was. He wasn't Captain Dan, but he was a sailor.
Yeah.
And then Reba the Mail Lady, she was on I don't know if it's Law and Order or something like that, but I mean she was in a bunch of stuff. Um
There
uh
was one other guy, and I didn't catch who it was. They were talking about him today, but I didn't catch the name.
Missy Vaughn is actually Charlie Kelly's mother on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Oh,
which I didn't realize. I loved the show and I had been watching it for a while, and she was one of my favorite characters. I had no idea. I mean, granted, because it's like 30 years since she was
yeah.
Missy Vaughn, and even then, Missy Vaughn wasn't like a 20-year-old or anything like that, you know. But as a kid, Missy Vaughn was enough woman for any of us, you know. So um, but yeah, and then like the cartoons, like there was the Penny cartoons, you know, that they had on there. There was the King of Cartoons who would come on and show like a 2-minute clip, you know. I always thought his driver, I can't remember what her name is off the top of my head, but she would come in and she'd play the trumpet, and she would like do just like a regal entrance, but then she'd get jazzy with it at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end.
yeah.
And then he'd come in with the reel to reel projector and say, "Let the cartoon begin." And then it was like some old, you know, 40s cartoon or something like that. It was just such a great show. And he of course was at the crux of it and everything. um I just had so many great memories of him. And then he was in one of my favorite movies, as many people's is Nightmare Before Christmas, and he has a role in that. And in the last several years, Danny Elfman, who composed all the music and was the voice of Jack Skellington, or the singing voice of Jack Skellington, um, he was doing live shows at the Hollywood Bowl in California, and they would play live. There was an orchestra, and they would play the whole movie, but play the music to it, but have all the original voice actors and singers there to
Wow.
sing the songs. And I got to see Danny Elfman, Paul Reubens, and Catherine O'Hara
Wow.
together, and all singing at the same time. It's the only time and the closest I ever got to seeing him in person. But that was a very, very special moment for me. It was absolutely huge. And the year I saw it was the first time they ever did it. They
Wow.
did it.
Wow.
They've done it for the last several years since, and he's come back every time. Unfortunately, that's gonna end for him now.
Well,
But
let's not leave out the movie either, though. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was awesome.
oh, it was, and to this day, it's one of those evergreen movies that you can still show a kid to this day, and it still works. It still applies. I've got the soundtrack. So Danny Elfman, who did Nightmare Before Christmas, his very first movie score he ever did was Pee Wee's Big Adventure. He had been in Oingo Boingo, and he
Yeah.
had made a lot of music before that. He hadn't even considered doing a movie score. And Tim Burton, his first movie he did for a major studio was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So Tim Burton and Danny Elfman get together for the very first time with Paul Reubens, and they help make this movie. And the soundtrack to that movie is absolutely an imperative part of it, because the music is just synonymous with the tone of that movie and the lightheartedness of it. But even like, you know, it's like it's got some doomy sounding type of music in some parts, but it's like it's a cartoon. It's like that type of sound, you
Yeah.
know. So both in the last, you know, day, I've been looking at both Tim Burton and Danny Elfman's posts about it and stuff, and they both said like, we owe our careers to this guy. Like, we would never, because Danny and Tim worked on everything after that. They did Beetlejuice and Batman and Mars Attacks and Sleepy Hollow and Nightmare Before Christmas. Danny and Tim Burton became a duo, and that would never have happened had they not come together to help make Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And they never forgot or that at all with him.
Well, I had a thing with that movie. I knew this girl. I was in college. I think I was a freshman in college, maybe. And I knew this girl, and she was really artsy. And we were just kind of talking, we weren't going out or anything. And I asked her out. I was really nervous about asking her out because she was artsy and I was like all business and I wasn't really sure, how that would work. And so I asked her out and she said, yeah. And she asked, what I want to do. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, well, let's go see a movie. And I thought, okay, it's going to be an artsy movie. This is going to put me to sleep. She suggests Pee Wee's Big Adventure. And I like
that's a
fell in love with
keeper.
that.
That's a keeper
Yeah, I was
right
like,
there.
this girl is mine. I fell in love with
Yeah.
her. Ultimately, it didn't work out, but it was, but man,
No,
what it
but it
like,
was still, yeah. I mean, of all the things she could have picked, that was that's a big like, all right.
if I could freeze that moment, like that moment, I will never forget that feeling. Like when she said, well, how about Pee Wee's Big Adventure?
Yeah, you're
And I
like,
mean, she wasn't
oh,
just saying it like because she knew that it would be cool with me. She's like,
she she
she
wanted
dug
to
it.
see it. Yeah, legit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a classic. It's quoted so many times and stuff, and I mean, I
James
just
Brolin
yeah,
and Morgan
and
Fairchild,
Morgan Morgan Fairchild.
PW.
Um, she or when that movie, it just again, it's something. It just really is something that movie stood the test of time the way that it did and does to this day, and well, it'll forever be a part of his legacy. But even beyond the TV show and the movie, one of the things I really loved hearing about probably a year and a half ago or so, I listened to the Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast, um, which is like the second highest rated podcast next to ours,
Behind Us.
behind us. So it's tough because they're kind of like competition, but at the same time, it is a good show. But Conan was talking about Pee Wee at one point on one episode, and he told a story that now I've heard the same story from other celebrities in other interviews and stuff. When it would be when it was somebody's birthday, Paul Reubens would send them birthday texts and memes and gifts and things like that all day to like an obnoxious level. Like he would send them like 20 things throughout the day, and like everybody loved it. I mean, they thought it was great, and but he did it for like, and it was like there's so many people. I'm like, he must have been doing this every single day. I mean, like it's always somebody's
Multiple
birthday.
times a day.
Yeah, and he just like they said, he just bombards you with so
Wow.
many happy birthday wishes and stuff like that. And
I never
everybody
got
they
any.
loved it. They were like, I can't believe Pee Wee sending me happy birthday messages. It's like I don't care
I never
how big
got
of
any
a
of those.
celebrity you are or anything like that. I mean, like that's just I just when I heard that, it just that really warmed my heart, and it was like everybody who ever had anything to do with him had nothing but good things to say about him. And all the outpouring I've seen since his passing yesterday, Elvira and a lot of people he was close to, and friends with, Cindy Lauper and like all these
Tracy
people.
Lord did a nice post on her social medias.
Yeah,
She
I
was
mean
with him.
everybody. I mean, everyone is just and so many people are just heartbroken. And I mean, God love him. He made it 70 years, but to be facing cancer for so long and keeping quiet about it and still sending all those happy
Yeah.
birthdays and all the stuff that he did just absolutely speaks volumes about him as a person, beyond just the entertainment, and I just I'll tell you, like I said, I mean, this one was a real punch in the gut for me, and I know, nobody lives forever, but it was tough. It's been tough, and I just wanted to take a little time just to kind of, share some stories about it,
Yeah.
and you know, he was very influential in me coming up, and somebody that, you know, I appreciated the silliness and just the devil may care attitude. And yeah, as you know from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Francis was his arch enemy, who he was convinced stole his bike.
Francis.
Francis, it's Francis home. Francis is taking his bath. Oh yeah, where are they hosing him down? You know? So that's where I got Francis, and so Pee Wee. His final gift to me was I got the middle name of John right, and
as,
so
as Kramer once said, the cat is out of the bag.
out of the bag. So yeah, so that's it. I just wanted to do a little quick, you know, take a few minutes and remember somebody who not only was great as an entertainer, but was a great human being, and somebody who I genuinely love. I wish I had the chance at some point to have met him and tell him in person, but like I said, seeing him singing with Danny Elfman and Catherine O'Hara, and I had no idea. Like, I mean, I
Right.
had no clue he was going to be there or anything. So when he came out, I
Blew their
li-
mind.
I may have been in tears for that, honestly. Like when he came on
I
stage,
get it.
because
I get it.
I was just like, he's just, you know. And it's interesting because it's a select group of people, I think, that really are feeling it harder than others, because, you know, like I mentioned to somebody today, I was, you know, I was like, yeah, I'm like, you know, Paul Reubens dying yesterday, you know, I really had me in tears. And they're like, really? They're like, they're laughing. They're like, huh, Pee Wee, huh? You know, and I was like, yeah. I'm like, he was awesome. He was he
Well, we
just
all
was,
have our people. We've all got
yeah.
a handful of people that affect us a certain way
Yeah,
for
and
whatever
it's not something
reason.
I expect everybody to get. Yeah, you know, it's just, this was in my world, you know, my relationship with him in my head was, you know, important. And to lose somebody like that under those circumstances, especially, you know, it's like if he,
Sure.
you know, if it was old age or whatever, then, you know, like I said, you know, everyone's going to go at some point. But to know that he went out the way he did and put on such a brave face, you know, I respect it. And I just but it does make it a little more heartbreaking, you know.
Of
So
course.
but so there it is. That's it. Just wanted to give a little love to Paul Reubens and say thank you for everything. And
Rest in peace. You gave us
yeah,
lots and
thank,
lots of laughs, and you're still giving us laughs.
it'll still, his legacy will continue. I have the soundtrack on vinyl. It's a Sunday morning thing for me. I put on when I'm making breakfast. I don't know why, but that to me is Sunday morning music. And I love it. So um thank you will never be enough, but you know, that's all we can say. So
We can honor his memory.
that's right. So for the John G. Orwell's podcast, I have been who else but Tommy Ellis. With me, as always, is the man on the beat from Johnny'sBeat.com, Mr. Jonathan Francis Rob Lesky.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Pee Wee.